if anybody's got a question, go ahead. I'm going to flip through the signs. Help me out. Go through the list of people again and just see if there's anybody new here. Because I won't say anything about these slides if there's nobody new here.
We're looking for new people. Well, we've got iPhone 520312, who could be, anyone. I don't recognize that one offhand. Michael Barnhart might be a new person to me.
And there's somebody else with a hand up too.
Okay, well, Nancy, you've got your hand up, and go ahead and also say, hi, morning, Nancy. 1 second before we get into this next question. If you are new to our webinars, if you could just type into chat new, or put your hand up if you can raise your hand control, that would be good. I don't have control to be able to go to the next slide, Steve. Okay, Nancy, go ahead.
This is just a curiosity question. We had a very large maple cut down a couple days ago, and the whole center, instead of rings, it looked like a huge starburst color. It was dark in color, and then all around it, like the last, I don't know how many years, were regular rings of a tree.
Yeah,
but it was really weird looking.
There is a book called The New Tree Biology by Alex Shigo, who was the head of the U.S. Head scientist at the U.S. Forestry Service for about 25 years. And it's a book from back in the 70s. I think it was the 70s. It rewrote what we know about trees. And what he came up with was a system called CODIT, CODIT, which is compartmentalization of decaying. It's about how trees protect themselves. And we've talked about the collar on a branch, how between a branch and the tree, there is always a line where the tree knows where the branch cells start, and the the trunks or main branches cells start. And so if something happens to the branch and decay gets in, the branch fills itself up with resin, and we get that round pattern where a branch was damaged. But the trunk or a main branch doesn't have a collar between part A and part B. So if I cut someplace or damage it someplace, especially if it's large, when it's damaged when it's large, the tree has to compartmentalize a different way. And you get that starburst pattern when the tree kept filling areas with resin as decay expanded, and it was trying to stop it on weaker walls that go up and down. So at some point, when it was fairly large, the tree had its top broken off, if it was the trunk that had that star pattern in it. And so you've got this, and this pattern went all the way down the trunk because there's no stopping anywhere along the way. There's no collar in the trunk. And that's where that pattern came from. And it can be extensive.
Yeah.
But if it stopped the decay, it worked for the tree. If the rings continued on the outside, the tree got past the damage.
We've been amazed at trees that we've seen that have the rot in the middle that still have enough strength to stay up too, though. So that's where you need an arborist to really.
Yeah. We just Steve Turner, who is an excellent arborist and like us, hard to get a hold of because he really should be retired. Just did a test on a client's tree to see how much good wood there was, because yes, there's some rot in the center, but the tree stopped it and is strong enough to stand up.
Yeah.
That book that I mentioned is,
Trees wants us to mention
the book that I mentioned is A New Tree Biology, and the author is Alex Shigo, Shigo. It's a little hard to read, and for that reason, it might be not terribly expensive as a used book. I'm sure it's out of print, because he wrote. He's passed away now, in kind of a stream of consciousness. He talked too. His workshops were just like that. But the photographs alone and the explanation of the photographs is worth having the book for. Okay, so
I thought, the way it looks, I thought that would be a really cool tabletop with that starburst in the middle.
Oh, you're right.
It's solid. It's not rotten or anything.
Yeah,
it could. And it's what's really cool is there's a place where you can buy slabs of wood from somebody who loves neat wood like that, because Mike Barger, who was Mike's tree surgeons until he retired, now he's in a separate business that he started, does slabs like that to make benches and tabletops out of. And you can bet that if there's a neat starburst in a tree trunk like that, he's going to find it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Go ahead, Carol.
Good morning. I'm doing a small perennial renovation and I need to move some Agastache Blue Fortune. And as you know, it's quite tall. And it's more convenient for me to move it now than in the spring. Here's my concern. It's still covered with bees. This just kills me. But I feel like I should cut it down if I'm going to dig it up and move it. I feel like it can't support all that top growth. I just want to confirm with you.
Yeah. And Sonia is cringing right now because we've talked about this before. Oh no, the bees are still on it. Yeah, I would cut it down too this time of year, but you can keep it up. If you tied it up, dug a decent hole around it and lifted it and then watered it well, it would probably continue to bloom or at least still stand up by itself. So you could do it either way, but I would cut it down.
It makes it easier.
If you've got other things that the bees are on, then let them go to other stuff, because you want that plant to make the move well. And I love Agastache, even though I don't like the fact that it seeds itself around. We're at that point right now, looking at our own garden at things that seed themselves around and saying, we meant this to happen, but it's hard to let it happen.
But when we're kind of trained not to let things run around.
Yeah.
And now we're untraining ourselves, maybe.
So there is a note. You're welcome. There is a note-taking guide today. And I added a couple of links to it yesterday for some soil from things that we handed out or gave out before and I have elsewhere on the website. So if you went to that, to the audience materials, oh, Sonia found all of them. Never mind. They're all there.
What did you
Sonia found what we have seen this year just recently is, oh my gosh, it has been a fertile year. It has been a year of lots and lots of seeds. Look at the seed pods on this tree of heaven. I'm sure people are looking and going, look at that tree blooming. If they're not realizing that they're all little baby trees of heaven.
And wait till they turn pink.
Yeah.
Those seeds.
Trees of heaven, tree of heavens.
Heaven.
I wonder how you pluralize that one. Yeah.
It has to be trees.
Yeah. Had some celebratory photographs from Ann Hackett this week. She said those shrubs that I asked about moving, those big shrubs that I root pruned in the spring, I moved them. I did it. I said,
way to go.
And she said, thank you for the encouragement. I said, thank you for showing us that people do these things.
And not just us.
So she root pruned this in the spring. She dug halfway around it in the spring because she was going to give herself 2 cool seasons to move it. Now she's tied it up. It's this is a dwarf lilac.
Dwarf.
Those of you who are considering planting a dwarf lilac, remember that dwarf does not mean knee high. So this is a dwarf lilac.
It might not even mean 6 feet high.
Yeah. So she's walked around it with rope and cinched it in tight, and now she's going to cut the rest of the half of the way around. And she said she dragged it. She
nicely done.
Oh,
with
now
the roots.
Now I forgot the words she used. They're so perfect. She rolled it and hustled it out of the hole, put it on a tarp, and dragged it to its new place. So now she's got a place to put something new in where it came from, and she's put it into its new place where it actually has room to grow. Congratulations, Ann, and thank you for giving the rest of us encouragement to do this now. She also pointed out, look at where I cut it back, how all the growth is from there outward. And yep, that's exactly how things turn into hollow balls when people keep cutting at the same place. She cut it back to make it a little bit smaller to handle to move it. So I hope that encourages somebody else to say that thing is too big. I can move it. I can dig it out of where it is and move it to someplace else. Do you keep it watered? Yes, you keep it watered now until the soil gets good and cold.
Yes, keep it moist, not wet.
Once the soil is below 50 degrees, which you can get a soil thermometer if you want to, but you can also just use your hand. When the soil starts feeling cold to your hand, cold, not cool, but cold, then there's probably very little microbial activity going on, not a lot of stuff happening at the roots, and you can stop watering. And then water, especially all next year, because next year is the re-upping year for this.
It's just like you're planting a new plant, so you water it in the same way. You do the you keep it moist for the first year.
And Nancy is suggesting that Carol bundle up her Agastache so the bees can still get to it, and it's true. I
Cut it down.
we had told Sonia the same thing. If you put those stems in water, just put them in a vase, just like cut flowers you bring into your house from a florist. The plants are still alive as long as they've got water and light, and they'll keep blooming. So, but don't leave them in the water for too long. You don't leave them in for too many days and not change the water. The water becomes gross, and you get mosquitoes. Till the very end of the year, till 2 days before frost, those mosquitoes can still lay
Well, they've
eggs and
been
develop.
nasty the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're making up for lost time.
We didn't have many out in Oregon, I
Right.
will say that.
Um,
What do we have?
Okay, we only have 1 minute left. So I guess we'll just say welcome to everybody who's here. We're just getting ready to start, and we've been taking questions as they came up ahead of time and talking about the emails that we got. We've just returned we returned on Wednesday evening from Oregon as the escorts for our 4 grandkids. And we have been the caretakers of our 4 grandkids since then, and for another couple days while their parents take some time off. And we are
And they need it.
We are brain fried.
Because we're gonna need it.
Yeah. Janet isn't answering it.
Love it.
I had cantaloupe volunteer that came from my neighbor's yard. I just picked it. It's very ripe. Well, good. Most of the time when you get volunteer squash and melons, they don't start until too late to ripen.
Oh,
But it's rather tasteless and no sweetness. Is that a soil issue? It can be a soil issue with fruit and vegetables that don't taste good, but more often it's a water issue, especially with melons. Too much water ends up causing less sugar to accumulate and being late in the year, the plant rushing itself. So yeah, too bad. Volunteer cantaloupe is a great thing to have. What great picture, Steve. What is that? Is that an oak?
yeah, that's one of the oaks up at Machine State.
That's a great color on that oak. Yeah. Okay,